Holla!
Hello!
I am Kelsey, and this is Amy. And welcome to this month's Love Community Group. The topic of conversation this evening, creativity. And with us tonight is a special guest. I'll let Amy introduce him.
My beloved friend, Joe Altepeter, he's done so many wonderful things with two of my favorite organizations in Los Angeles. One is Social Enterprise. Oops, that's supposed to be off. One of them is Social Enterprise Alliance, and I think that it is one of the most creative solutions around for creating prosperity for all. And then he's also the director
of Social Enterprise and Workforce Development
for Downtown Women's
Center,
yes. Which is, I think, the most creative solution for solving poverty in Los Angeles. So we're super excited to have you.
Well, maybe
Thank
we
you.
can get a little top down of what that looks like.
Downtown Women's Center?
Well, just like why it's the most creative solution for ending poverty. Can we get that in a nutshell? That
Yeah.
sounds fascinating.
I tend to agree. So the Downtown Women's Center was created almost 40 years ago, 39 years ago, by a social worker working in Skid Row of Los Angeles. And she recognized that there were zero services for women at the time in the 70s. And she befriended a woman, Rosa, and through that friendship and collaboration and their creative minds, they created a drop-in center in 1978, a drop-in center for homeless women. And then it grew to 48 units of housing, wraparound services, and then in 2010 we grew even further. We expanded our programming, both housing and all of the wraparound services, to include a total of 119 units of permanent supportive housing and mental health, 3 meals a day, case management. We have a psychiatrist on staff. We have a workforce development program.
That's why I think it's the most
within the
creative
social
part.
enterprise. So that's what I do, is the social enterprise and the workforce development.
And what that means is that they have the clients working in several different, there's 2 or 3 different businesses that Downtown Women's Center runs.
Mm-hmm.
And the clients help participate in running the business and learning how to do, there's a cafe.
Yes,
There
we have
is
a cafe and gift boutique. We have a resale boutique, and then we have a handmade product line. Within those 3 spaces, the women have the opportunity to go through job training programs and also some transitional employment, and then some part-time permanent employment opportunities as well. So really moving women on through their trajectory towards employment. So these are women who are living in poverty, chronically homeless, and chronically unemployed. So it's one of the groups with the biggest barriers to employment.
Yeah.
So really take some creative juices to really understand how to make that, how to solve those issues.
And that actually rolls us perfectly into the first topic of discussion, which is what is creativity and what do you believe about it? And I full-heartedly think that creativity is basically problem solving. So when you have to solve one of the biggest problems of our time, it takes a lot of creativity to get through all the challenges and problems that come up.
Yeah, I mean, we use creative solutions to really address the community's biggest issues, right? So, and it does take that creativity. I think the definition of creativity is something like using imagination and ideas to create opportunity or something like that. And then oftentimes they talk directly about art or
it does say in the definition, there is a definition. There's one definition without art, and then there's another definition with art. Yeah.
So, I mean, with the Downtown Women's Center, we do use art as a component of what we do, the programming, because art, as we all know, I hope we all know, that it can really be healing. So we're talking about, individuals, women, are working through traumatic issues, and art and creativity, tapping into to your personal creativity can really be healing. So we definitely use art as a form of creativity, but we also use creative solutions or kind of creative minds to develop the programming and what does it look like, and also to measure the impact and look at it differently about how do we measure the impact of women going through our employment programming.
Right.
So does it automatically mean they've gotten to a job and that they're retaining that job for 6 or 12 months? Or does it also mean that now they're through this process of engaging on their next steps towards employment, they might then move towards housing, or they might recognize challenges with their health, their mental health, that now they're able to explore at a deeper level because they have started tapping into their creative mind, their space where they can actually kind of address those things on a very personal level. So we support them through that process as well.
I heard today, I think that, what is it? Self-expression. We need self-expression. It's a given that we need self-expression, and creativity is the best way to express yourself.
Yeah.
Do you think that's true?
Definitely.
Yeah. It is what we all do, like what you guys do here in the studio. This is about creativity. You created this space to have these conversations. And that's creative, right?
One of my favorite definitions of creativity is the idea that like we see the future in our mind's eye, and like humans are the only things on the planet that can like imagine something and then go make it
through imagination.
So like for me, through imagination, exactly. So for me, creativity, in addition to problem solving and creative thinking, is also the fact that like we create in every moment. We create our own lives. We create our own existence. You know, and anyway, there's that.
Yeah.
I think one of the times, like the thing that we do every day, all the time, that requires, in fact, the most creativity is communication.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly like solving problems in your mind of like what is going on in this conversation with the body and the mouth and everything.
Yeah.
You know?
That's so true. And then what is it? 70% of communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
Something crazy like that. So it's like we actually need to put that kind of creativity to work. You know, organize our thoughts. I was actually thinking about that the other day too. That I was like, literally, like the human existence is just expressing our own thoughts. It's communication. It's making connections, because like we go through life and
nothing else matters besides relationships and those connections. I mean, take it all away, and what do you got if you don't have people and relationships? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
One of the vital 5 elements of happiness. Fulfilling happiness.
Yeah.
What else? Do you believe that everybody is creative?
I think naturally we're creative. Too. I think there's I remember reading a study about childhood. There's a certain age that we're dissuaded from being creative. Like, okay, now you're coloring.
4 or 5 years
you have
old.
The coloring book, and now we got to move on to math
school.
and reading, right? And rather than using, so we're and different families, different cultures look at creativity differently too.
Absolutely.
And they really steer away. And some of us, I think, are less creative and
of course, I think it's a spectrum
but
and a skill that you can make better or let it weaken.
I read an article about it when I was kind of like prepping for this, and it was basically arguing, as a psychology article that actually argued, like a muscle, you can exercise like the skills of creativity, which is like creative problem solving and divergent thinking and things like that, but you can't actually learn to be creative, was like their argument, that like the ability to imagine something, like anyone can learn the skills of like woodworking, right? And they can follow, like eventually they can learn to woodwork and they can be taught and they can create something, but like are they able to imagine it and do it differently, you know? And that's kind of the difference, is like,
can they master it?
Can they master it and master it in a way that says like, I'm not just like good at following instructions, right? I'm good at, or even problem solving, but I'm good at like imagining my creation and like being able to bring it to life kind of factor. And I thought it was an interesting differentiation, because I feel like a lot of what I've come to believe about happiness and creativity is a lot about the skills, that we can just kind of like hack our skills. But then I thought it was interesting, the idea that they did draw the line that like there is something special about being creative that can't necessarily
There's a lot of
be
aspects,
taught.
yeah, and some of it can, I mean, creativity as a skill can definitely be taught, but maybe one aspect of it can't. Is that what?
They were saying, I can pull it up, I can find the article.
Maybe you can, yeah, I mean, like if I wanted to sing like Barbra Streisand, I can't, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to
There
learn
are
that
things we
skill.
cannot
There
access.
are certain things I can't access,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
But
right.
I think we all have the capacity to be creative
in our
way,
strengths,
right?
that we're all different.
Yeah.
And like you said,
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to probably put it, is that like it's not like everyone can be Barbra Streisand and be a singer, but everyone has that in them somewhere in some capacity, that they can release their inner Barbra Streisand in some capacity. That makes sense.
I heard a good one. Another good one was, you can be so creative in an Excel spreadsheet. And I totally agree. I mean, I feel like I'm creative in Excel spreadsheets.
I can get lost in Excel spreadsheets because I like order. You know, I like to be a
like
broad thinker,
order.
but I also like to keep order and keep notes. And I need to know where to find things. But that's kind of creative.
It
right?
is.
We're
It's
looking
creative
at
problem
ways
solving.
Yes.
It's ways to organize your thoughts and stuff like that. It's really important.
Yeah.
Amy might argue it's a very imperative skill to be successful.
Oh, let's see. What are some other beliefs? Like, what about some? Okay, I have a belief about God that I'm going to share. I believe that God created the earth, and that So in Genesis, verse 1:1, the first verse in the whole entire Bible is God created the earth. And then like verse 27, I think, it says God created humans in his image. So I think we are created to be imaginative, to be problem solvers. It is something that kind of sets us apart from the animals, is that idea to look into the future.
Yeah.
If we're created in God's image, then we therefore are creative, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
It's sort of like we create because we're created is sort of the idea. Like I went back and rewatched this really great like talk I heard that was kind of like breaking down the difference between identifying a false dichotomy that we sort of pit evolution and science against creation and God. And and he was saying, he was likening it to the difference between like philosophy and superstition. That like a huge reason why a lot of like very smart people have a very hard time getting on board is because of all these like misperceptions about that. And
I like that.
Yeah, and so he kind of broke down though that like when you follow those two logical paths, like, because he was like a philosopher, and so his whole thing was like, if you're going to put like science and evolution and all of those kinds of things, and he said, who's the guy, the brilliant scientist who's disabled? Stephen Hawking. That Stephen Hawking believes in like that everything, it's all mathematical. So everything happened sort of by accident, and it's all has to do with math and science and evolution, and that basically it's a deterministic view of the universe, that essentially we don't have free will, that like every choice that we make is actually already predetermined. Basically all of science does kind of boil down to these two. Like we also watched this whole thing about the Hadron Collider, and like basically a lot of science is broken kind of into two categories, where you either believe in this deterministic mathematical universe, or you believe in like I think it's called some other theory. I can't remember what the actual official term is, but basically where you tend to believe in basically like a creator, like it came from somewhere, we all don't know where, but
not
like
creation theory.
I can't. No, I'm blanking on the actual official term, because it was chance theory.
Chance theory.
Yeah, because it was chance theory versus. Do you remember what the other one was called?
Oh, determinism is chance. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact terms. I'll find them. I'll look them up. I'll share them in the group, guys, because it was so good. But anyway, there's a Netflix documentary about the Hadron Collider, and how all the scientists were so, which by the way is a beautiful example of creativity, because all of these scientists from around the whole world, didn't matter if people were fighting and if they were warring or whatever, in the name of like exploration and science, all of these people came together for like decades, have been working together on this Hydra Collider. It's beautiful. And so anyway, that's getting back to the topic though, the idea of like the argument for like creation or having been created, and that's what makes us. So that might be the argument for the God's image piece, but like it's our innate need to create that makes us human, and that's the human experience, and that we aren't determined, like our future isn't determined, but instead like we actually create it. And so almost like he actually made like a logical argument saying that like at the end of the day there's evidence for both, but like at some point you have to kind of decide like which one just makes more sense to you. You know, and his thing was like, I mean, to me it makes more sense logically that there is something that there is a God or a creator or some sort of source or whatever it is you want to call it, but there is this, because that makes more sense in the way of like the human experience. So I thought that was kind of interesting to kind of piggyback off the idea of like the image of God being that we are creators. As like our essence, and that's why we can't hurt each other either, because we're not meant to do that.
We're meant to make things better. Not to destroy.
We can imagine the future.
We destroy pretty good.
We
destroy pretty good.
We're kind of good at that.
That's what I'm saying, but we're just not supposed to destroy each other and our planet. Okay, so is this the part where we can get political yet? Because
girl, let's talk politics. Let's do it. I'm looking up my political stuff right here.
I've said this a couple times before, but basically...
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I just pause you real quick? Do you have your phone on you? Because one thing I just realized is that I can't do what you did last time where we checked the Facebook on your phone and you saw that. Can you do that this time?
Sure.
Because it won't come up on my phone since, like, I guess my phones are connected and it's recording.
Oh, sure,
So,
absolutely.
Sorry I haven't been answering your comments, everybody, but Kelsey's about to take care of that.
I'm in the wrong one.
And so when she's looking at her phone, she's talking to our online audience,
we
not
want to see the hearts floating by and the thumbs up, and the angry faces.
No, well, we want to get angry faces.
We want opinions.
Right.
We want opinions.
We want to get hot topics going on here.
Okay. Oh yeah, there we are. Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, absolutely. So I've said this before, but just to kind of bring you up to speed on like my perspective of like why, which I did share with you earlier, but they didn't necessarily hear, of why we're doing this. But it's that basically like I think I live in a liberal bubble. I mean, we live in Los Angeles and like pretty much agree with everything most everyone else agrees with here, and of course it seems like common sense to me, but then at the end of the day I fully recognize that like that is not the reality that we're living in. And so as much as I can find
other
people who agree with me,
other
people think other stuff. So the whole purpose of bringing up these more political topics is actually to genuinely open the conversation. It's not, this is like the last thing that this is. It would be like any kind of like bashing situation.
Yeah,
like,
this isn't CNN with the yelling heads and arguing about, doesn't even go anywhere. Arguments.
Fox. It's just, I mean, just, a couple liberals who are just seeking some understanding.
And we're going to get some right-siders in here, too, at some point. I'm assuming you're not. I don't know if you don't want to call out what you are or not, but we do have, because diversity is, another thing is that diversity is one of the principles of creativity. So you can't have the most creative solutions if the group doesn't have any diversity at all whatsoever. So definitely we are working on getting some more right side minded people on our.
I mean, when you talk about community, like, there's a theory of decentralizing poverty, right? I work in poverty.
Okay,
so decentralizing poverty. So a healthy community is a community that's very diverse.
Yeah.
Not only in its people, but also in its socioeconomics, right?
Yeah.
But also in its beliefs, so it's its political beliefs. But you talked earlier about we are born not to hurt each other, right? Mm-hmm. So myself as a liberal, I try to balance that as well, understanding that there are 3.8 million less that voted for our current president than voted for Hillary. But there's another side to hear, and not the hurtful, angry, racist,
rhetoric in this,
misogynist and homophobic rhetoric. But there is another side to hear and to listen to, and I think we as community members need to be open to hearing that side and having those conversations. And when you have family members that have a difference of opinion, you still are in those relationships, and how do you manage those?
Right.
In my younger years, I was just very angry all the time.
Yeah.
So, but now it doesn't serve me to be angry. So how do we?
So what do you do instead?
Yeah.
That's why we started the Love Community Group.
Yes. Okay. So we're back to why you created the Love Community. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. No, it was beautiful.
Well, I'm gonna throw in a little wrench there, and one of the things you said, which is that anger doesn't serve you. I don't know. I think anger does serve us in some circumstances. I realized recently that one of the things that makes me the most angry is unused human potential, wasted human potential.
Yeah.
And I think that using that anger to produce positive results is very powerful. But it's when you don't know how to channel the anger, that is that's the problem.
I think, I'm a very passionate person. I'm passionate in what I do. My whole life is about passion, right? So I do have anger, and I get frustrated, and I get mad, and I fight, and I yell, but I don't know that it's beyond
not your
that
dominating emotion anymore.
That, right? Yeah, and I just for my personally,
it doesn't serve you to act out of
for
anger.
my personally, it wasn't serving a purpose in my life when it was 24/7.
Right. Not okay. Yes.
Emotions are like
I had to be in that space.
Yeah. 24/7 anger, not so good.
Yeah. Well, okay. So speaking about political stuff
and anger. No, just kidding.
I kind of wrote down, in my notes, I wrote down perceptions I realize I have that I suspect may not be accurate.
Nice. Juicy.
So here's the thing. I have this quote. I have a couple quotes here. I was looking up articles and stuff like that about creativity and the government and I feel like everyone kind of knows the government's defunded all this creativity in schools for the most part. Now
they are defunding. Have they already done it?
I mean, they've been doing it since the 70s.
Well, that's true. That's a good point.
Been a minute.
Yes,
it's been pretty rough.
Except football.
Yes, football. There's always that good old American smash your head, and then we're not going to cover your injuries that we made millions of dollars off of. There's that. Anyways, okay. So here's a quote. It says, "These agencies can raise." So this is speaking about creativity. And the quote is, "These agencies can raise funds from private sector patrons, which will also free them from any risk of political interference," says a Republican congressional budget proposal in 2014. Another quote says, "I'm even more concerned about federal funding and political intervention leading to mediocrity," says Ramana Boccia of the Heritage Foundation. And my thing is, I feel like, again, this is my perception, I suspect it may not be totally accurate, but my perception is I feel like that really well summarizes the Republican agenda, which is that they want, it's so old power versus new power, right? The power, and this is ancient. This isn't anything new. I mean, the foundation, the reason that we have the electoral college system in our country is because there's this idea of people in power wanting to retain power, and then the people, And sure, through most of human history, people haven't been that educated, and sure, we just witnessed how people can still make mistakes. But overall, I feel like it's this I feel like it's Democrats tend and liberals tend to represent the people, and fairness for everyone. And I feel like Republicans tend to represent the institution and the old power model. And so they want things to be elite, right? They want there to be this special place just for them. And that's why they don't, it said, I'm worried about mediocrity. If we open it up and other people get to play it's going to be mediocre. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be
I was
as
thinking if we
amazing
take
as
out
it
all the
could be.
creativity, it's going to lead to mediocrity.
No, she's saying she's worried about federal funding and political intervention leading to mediocrity.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. And to me, that's sort of like saying like...
He's awesome. Lord is awesome.
What?
Lord is awesome. I like to just throw that in there when I say it.
Oh. So, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm curious to hear like other, again, invitation here.
Yes, speak up. This is not for us to be like, oh, our political views. This is for you to chime in and tell us why we're wrong, right?
Yeah, because I just, like I said, I feel like that's what I feel like it boils down to, because you look around like our country and a lot of like the gripes and like frustrations and stuff like that kind of boil down to like the way things used to be. And it's this like idealization of the past, and I'm like, God, dog it, the past just wasn't that good for a lot of people, you know? And like, I know maybe it was better for you, but it was worse for other people. And that's to me like this quote about federal funds for creative projects really somehow encapsulates like my general frustration and misgivings and concerns about conservative perspectives on things. And I get that there's a balance there. Like, I get that like we do need people saying slow down, you know, but like, does it have to be stop and let's go back? Does it have to be reverse? Like, can it just be
I think everybody in the country is frustrated with that right now, that our politicians, both sides, are not moving forward on a lot of things. We have solutions to so many of our problems. If the government would help us implement
it's
DWC,
not the government, it's the people who are in power. The people who are in power and they're not necessarily in the government. They're the ones who just hold the purse strings of the government. That's, to me, it's like that's the essence of it.
One thing to back up one thing that you said you think that the Democrats tend to represent people more, and there's actually statistics that show that, because when more people vote, the left or Democrats win, and when less people vote, Republicans win, and I think that shows that you can sway a small amount of people with a lot of money, you know, and communication in the right way. And there was and then also the 2 times that the Electoral College, so when we go with the popular vote, Democrats win also. And then when we go with the Electoral College, then the Republicans win. So that is another like backup of like, yeah, it's the establishment, right, that's winning at that point. But both sides are very establishment now, like Democrats, Republicans, we got all the corporations getting their little fingers in there on all the politicians, really. I think so. Let's move on to the next question section, which is, what gets in the way of creativity and what can we do about it? How can we overcome that? What are principles for creativity? How can we be more creative? Practice. That's a lot of questions.
I think it's literally like kind of the same things we've talked about almost every month, which I think it's a lot of just like we can hack ourselves. Like we can hack our brains, we can hack the way we think and feel. You know, we have a lot of choice over like what we become. We
take
create
control
in every moment.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just like exercising, like get out there. If you want to write. Don't wait for permission for somebody to tell you to write. Just get out there and write. Like one of my favorite things that Amy always says is she says she doesn't believe in writer's block. She's just, all writer's block is being afraid of writing a shitty first draft, you know. And so it's like, because the creativity will come, but you have to engage in creative activities. Speaking of that, have you guys seen the Abstract videos on Netflix? There's a series called Abstract.
I think I started watching it.
They're really good. I highly recommend them. They're all about like creatives and like in various fields that are like the cream of the crop, like the very best in their creative fields. And they all, so each episode's dedicated to one. And that was one of the first ones I watched, was a guy who has done a lot of covers for the New Yorker, the covers of the New Yorker. And
yes, I did see it. Yes, I remember.
So his whole thing is like, you just have to sit down. Like he said, inspiration is for amateurs. Like sit down and do your job. Yeah. And that's what it takes to like engage in creativity.
He's created like the most New York. I mean, the New Yorker's style is based on the guy's work. Yeah.
I don't remember. I think that sounds
maybe he has
accurate,
to twist it to the style.
So
I'm not sure, but
inspiration is for amateurs, so he doesn't use inspiration.
He doesn't wait for
inspiration. He kind of like goes out and mauls it like a bear. Not really.
Okay.
Delicately. I'm totally
Yeah.
I'm totally kidding. It's more like a little kid going into a field looking for fairies or something.
Yeah. I mean, I think we get in our own ways most of the time, right?
All the time.
With creativity, we get in our way.
I would say that is the biggest challenge.
And it's because of our fears.
Getting in our own
but then it goes back to like culturally, what are we told that's acceptable, and are we told that we're good at that? Are we told that we're not good at that?
That's true.
I mean, if you think about like topics that can polarize you, right? That, because creativity, as somebody mentioned earlier, one of you mentioned that communication is a form of sharing your creativity, right?
Oh yeah.
But if you can't communicate and you can't learn to collaborate and come together as a community, that can really hinder any progress so if you're using creativity to solve problems or to just have a really great life, that fighting can get in the way. So I think creating healthy communities, so if you have a very diverse community with a group of people that learn to talk about their difference of opinions, then that can help us be more creative, right?
Yeah, because we are stronger together. Like biologically, we're like engineered.
Someone used that in her campaign.
I say it. I do say it
together.
now. Stronger together.
But we are, regardless of who we are, liberal and conservative, we're stronger together.
And actually, just bouncing right off of that, so one of the things that I think really prohibits creativity in our political system is our two-party system, because it's only two parties. So that allows you, so like when there's a fight, they bump heads and there's nothing that we can do about it. But if there's diversity, if there's at least one more party in there with three, you can't really like come to a lock with three, right? There's always somebody who's gonna like change it up a little bit, which is another thing. I heard that there was a guy who wants to add like 19 Supreme Court judges to because we only have 9 Supreme Court judges that determine like the laws of the entire country, and it's up to them. So it's like, how do we? 9 is an arbitrary number that we just came up with. If we added like 20 more seats, then it would be tons more diverse. It would be. You would hope. Yeah. It depends on how we made it happen.
Still
of course.
A two-party system.
And then you have all those different, I mean, it'd be harder for people to lock up also, again, in that same situation, because 9 is actually a really crappy number because you only have one person making the decision a lot of times,
right.
You know?
Yeah, that's interesting.
What else? What's in the way of creativity? What about some principles for creativity? What are, can you guys think? Okay, I'll just throw some out there since I've got
since you got a list.
Since I've got one, I think, way to enhance creativity is to like define the rules, or to like if you're problem solving, it's like define the question. So it's because a lot of people actually have a really hard time being creative when they're just looking at a blank piece of paper.
Right.
That's like the hardest time to be creative. When you have something to start with, that's when you can jump and throw yourself into it and kind of open it up to possibilities.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, I guess kind of along that same lines as life experiences, right? Gives you that. It's kind of I don't know if it's a principle, but definitely necessary. I think
diverse life experiences.
I probably can't write your story, but I could write, the more I get to know you, the more I can involve you maybe in my story.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but life experiences are really important to be able to kind of define how we approach creativity.
Yeah.
I think traveling makes you more creative. Like you're talking about life experiences. When you go put yourself in a whole other place and like nothing is normal to you, it automatically makes your brain stretch in those ways, those problem-solving ways, and look at the world from a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking too that like people don't realize partly how much like the idea of like being creative and being able to utilize these principles and being able to like, because I was thinking that one of the things I wrote down is that like like the principles of positive reinforcement or like happiness or whatever, like all these different things, they all kind of go into like the principles of creativity, and how that we like we're so fortunate here. Like we're so fortunate here in America. Like we don't realize here, like there's only a handful of countries in the whole world that can even like prioritize the level of creativity that and the problem solving and stuff like that we're able to like implement here, and here in several other countries as well. But like the idea, I was kind of piggybacking off of what you guys were saying about traveling and like how it opens up your mind and your worldview and things like that. But what are the kinds of people that don't get to travel? And I'm like, well, it's a lot of people. Most of the world doesn't get to travel the way that like we imagine, you know? Yeah. And so it's kind of like, I don't know, for me, I've just been really waking up to like the idea that we live in the most, like in a lot of ways, in the most amazing time in history. We live in a time in history where like we do say people should be treated fairly and equally, and like that we're willing to fight for it publicly, and that people have more power than ever before. And yet at the same time, like it is such a privilege to even be offended by like inequality, you know, because most of the world, and like I feel like a lot of times our leaders, I feel like they don't want us to know. I feel like we are very insulated here, you know, about what's happened in the world and what goes on, and they make us think that we know, like on the news and stuff like that, but like there's so much going on in the world. Like I always share this story about, we went on a cruise in October and we were in the Bahamas, and because of where we were, we only got international CNN. It was the best news I watched. I was like, I actually feel like I know what's happening in the world. Commercials were more positive. Like, I'm like, oh, there's all kinds of innovation happening in the world, you know? I'm like, we don't hear that stuff. All we see is like silly, like fast food commercials and political commercials and car commercials. It's just consumerism. Like, we're so blessed here, and yet we're so weak. You know, we're very like, we're strong in principle, but we're weak in action. And I think that's where this conversation about creativity becomes really important, because it's a creative mind that can get passionate about something enough to like get off and do something, like to get out of like your own world and what you want, first, you know? Yeah. So anyways, there's my little soapbox.
Yeah, now when you think about technology and how it's actually had such a big impact on creativity and how we share ourselves to the world or learn about the world, right? We have more opportunities to learn about the world. I think the 2008 was the first election that we really used. Obama's campaign did an amazing job with social media, and like that's completely changed everything. Like everyone is on it. Everyone has a point or perspective. Sometimes I think everyone's it can be overwhelming, and everyone's a producer. So, but there's some good, really great nuggets and different information that you can get out there if you know how to find it.
And it's leveled creativity, because if everybody has access and everybody can be a producer, then everybody has a little bit more of a voice also.
Yeah, exactly. So like I've told Amy's heard me say this before too, that I just feel like we're at a precipice a bit in history too, where like never before, ever have the people had so much power. And because of the internet, because of social media, and like the power right now laying in what people want and stuff like that, and because those companies haven't necessarily been around long enough to be like, I don't know, I know it sounds terrible, like poison, the way that most American businesses have been.
Oh, the tech companies?
Yeah, like it's all still new. Like they're still controlling and they're still selling our information. There's a lot of bad stuff that they're doing, but at the same token, like I feel like we need to like really make sure that we're like keeping our control, you know, like as the people, because I think it's like we're all so dependent on the technologies and on the platforms that are all controlled by like just a handful of people. And if those people end up being more like, you know, the people we know that, like if history teaches us anything, right? You know, we need to be careful and to be able to retain that power that we've like fought so hard as humanity to get. So
it is, I do feel like it's in jeopardy right now with like the net neutrality stuff that's going on. I do think that's a bigger issue than, I don't know, it's a concern of mine. It is.
What is it? Net neutrality?
That they're trying to control the how fast information gets to certain, like, so the question is, should these huge corporations be able to control how fast information goes to specific people's
based
computers.
On what they pay.
Based on what, I don't know,
what
based on anything. So pay, so that is, so that's, I mean, that's the big one, scary one, right?
Yeah.
Because then there are people who will control what you see on the internet, you know, that's crazy.
Yeah.
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 That is scary. That's the thing. It's like, it's such like the wild unknown right now. It's been around for like 20 years. You know what I mean? 30 years. It has been like it's like a blip in the radar. And it's just like, I feel like we need to like, I feel like part of my concern about like our generation is just that we don't understand our place in history. I feel like it's emerging, but I feel like we are a generation of people that has not had to fight hard for anything. We haven't had to sacrifice, you know what I mean? Like
really? Because I think our generation, I'm on the edge of it. I'm in the middle, right in the middle of millennials and Gen X or whatever it is. So you're like straight up millennial.
Yeah, I'm kind of an older millennial.
Yeah.
Technically speaking.
So right now, so the millennials, I think, have had a really hard time. Like, our economy has been horrible for millennials.
Okay, but that's like first world problems. Like, that's like mega first world problems. I'm
People
talking about
not being
like
able to get a job is a pretty big problem.
It's a problem, but it's still a first world problem, because I feel like what I'm getting at is like our founding fathers had to fight blood, like tooth and nail. Like, we had a civil war. Like, there's been wars that have been fought, you know what I mean, throughout all of human history for like revolution. But like on our, like we haven't had to fight for anything. What have we had to fight for? You know
We're
what I mean?
fighting to survive. I feel like millennials now are fighting to survive. I think it's really hard to be middle class, and it seems like we were sold a world that was, anybody can grow up and get a job and be middle class, and it is not that way. People can't afford homes. A lot of people, middle class people, can no longer afford to feed their families. I mean, that's fighting for life on the worst level. If you have kids and you can't feed, I mean, I would imagine that one of the worst feelings, around is not being able to provide.
So are you saying maybe it's
kids.
like people aren't well, I don't know.
Everybody deals with different stuff knowing.
But I think the thing is that like part of how I think Donald Trump happened is because people are not awake to what's happening in the world. They're not awake to what's happening in our own political system. They're like, it's soundbite news. That's where we're at right now, right? So it's like part of the problem is that like it's helping now post-election that people are getting more involved, but previously like our generation has not been very involved politically. You know, we're just also a coming of age generation, but like I think the thing is that if we're gonna get what we want, you know what I mean, like we're gonna have to learn how to organize and how to be
Well,
how
don't
to fight.
you
How to
think
work
that
together is a good one.
You think that this might be the catalyst to do that, to create that
Hopefully.
opportunity? When
we
you
don't get
think about
distracted.
recently Black Lives Matter, I mean, there are groups of people that are truly fighting.
Yes.
Not everyone is fighting, and some people are sitting back and just kind of watching life go by, but there are groups of people that are forced into fighting. And forced into standing up for themselves when, you know, so I think
it's a catalyst.
I think this president might be that catalyst to do that. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think, and that's what throughout history it's always been. There has always been something, if you think about like even
something
like,
that jolted.
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
something with the civil rights movement. There was something that jolted it. Was how people were being treated. That forced them to literally have to save their life in order to, you know, the segregation and the Jim Crow laws, and those were knocking people down all day long, and you had to fight. There wasn't an option of fighting or not fighting. When, you know, you think about AIDS in the 80s and then through the 90s, there wasn't an option to fight or not fight. There wasn't an option if you became HIV positive to be out or closeted, right? To hide your sexuality. So there was certain things throughout history, the women's movement. There were things, women being held down so long, and misogyny being what it was, or currently still is, but even more so, you know, through the 60s and into the 70s when the ERA, and, you know, there were little things that maybe millennials not getting the perfect job after college is a thing, and I don't mean that to be facetious, but like to get that job, I don't know if that is the same thing.
Right.
But there's definitely people living in poverty, and there are definitely people that are, have, because of who they were born as, really have to fight for their lives. So definitely.
And there's not, the way that our system works even now is that it's really hard there's no support. So if you do fall down, there's nothing that's going to help you get back up. You're down.
Yeah. I mean, I was just talking to my hairstylist the other day, and it's like she's like needs to get this surgery, but she would literally, if she had this surgery, she would be like unable to do her job for like a year, like a whole year. And she works for herself and has her own business, and it's like, why do we live why in this country at this time can someone not own their own business and get a surgery that's necessary for them? Like, that is just so crazy.
That's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
And
there's
like the
no
same thing with like maternity
margin
leave
for error. Yeah. If you err, sorry.
Yeah.
You're screwed for a long time. Unless you get lucky, right?
Yeah.
And then the lucky thing, speaking to luck, the nonprofits, I mean, the only way, the main support system now is from nonprofits, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Helping people lift themselves up. Let's see, what time are we at here, Mitch? We do have time to do one. Okay, we're at 8:15. Do we have time to do one more principle?
Let's do projects so we can be wrapped up. We said 15 minutes for projects, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. Okay. So.
So. Okay, I got really excited about everything that you were saying when it came to like the summit you have coming up and all that kind of stuff. Like, I definitely personally am like getting super excited about like all the amazing work that so many organizations like yours are doing and wanting to like tell those stories. And so we've talked since the beginning about wanting to like do something around homelessness and wanting to like tell the stories of the lost potential and like rekindling like people's potential, like a lot of what you guys are doing. And so we've been kind of chatting about that like the last few months and just throwing that out there. But the coolest thing happened, well, actually it's not cool, but it is very interesting, that happened yesterday. Robert and I were driving here to the studio, and the studio phone rang, and we got a call, and it was the man who is currently homeless, and he found out a few months ago that he is dying of cirrhosis of the liver from drinking. And he's like, listen, like, I am not looking for a handout, I'm not looking for anything, but I want to tell my story. Like, I just want people to know what like can happen, and I'm like, well, you can't say no to a dying man's last wish. Like, so we're gonna meet with him and we're gonna try and like do something around it. But basically, I feel like it kind of ties in really beautifully to like the fact that we want to talk about homelessness in general, and like maybe it could be part of a series, or maybe it could be like its own story. I don't know, but like on some level, we're gonna be telling this man's story, but not sure what exactly that looks like, and just kind of just wanted to share that. I felt like it was really cool.
So that fits really well with Invisible People that I've talked about. Have you heard of Invisible People? It's an organization that they do videos of homeless people, and the videos are all pretty consistently about asking them, how did you get into this situation? And what are your 3 wishes? If you could have any 3 wishes in the world, what would they be? And they're so beautiful. They've been doing it for, I don't know, so many years, a long time. It's very established, and so the videos are very well done, and they're so that's a great, so we should, see how that can kind of intermix there.
Yeah.
And then he's starting to expand and do stuff that's kind of exploring solutions in the area, and he does it all over the United States, I think. So like seeing like what are the nonprofits doing in the area that are the best solutions. So maybe tying all that whole thing in.
Yeah, because like the whole vision that I had was I wanted to like a mini docu-series of maybe like 10 to 20 minute documentaries where the whole point is when you watch the series, it really draws a big picture of where things are at in homelessness here in LA, so that like, because I feel like a lot of people, everyone knows it's a problem. Everyone sees it in our legislation and stuff like that. But I feel like most people, and myself included, don't really understand like what's happening and what are good solutions versus what are bad solutions. And it's like we don't have time even to like dive in on that level. So it'd be cool to be able to like draw that picture and get that big picture of what's happening and what organizations are doing like amazing work and what people, like how people are coming back and like what can we do. Like this is 57,000 people that, you know, in downtown that are people that could be contributing to society, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think in that it would be very interesting. I'd love to see it, but include that private-public or public-private connection. Like include some government agencies in these conversations. Like what are they doing? Someone from the mayor's office, someone from the council, the supervisor's offices, and see what are they doing, what's happening. LASA, have someone to talk about it from that perspective, because it really does, and I talked about this earlier, about having diversity. A healthy community really needs diversity, and that includes both private and public, right? We cannot solve homelessness with private dollars.
One sector. I mean, we need all the sectors.
Right? So, yeah, it'd be great to include that.
What would you... I feel like it's a little silly, but like in 10 seconds or less, how would you describe like what needs to happen with homelessness? Because you're saying like I feel like you have a unique perspective, and that like you work in the homelessness field and here in LA specifically, and you know other organizations and things like that. Like what do you feel like is like, is it simple? Is it not simple? Like, what are some of the things that people can do? You know.
Is it simple? No, it is not simple. It is hard. And I was telling Amy earlier, we don't do this because it's easy. We do it because it's hard. And I truly believe that there are people that you guys as well, the two of you, we work in this. We do the work that we do because it's hard, because it needs to be done. And only because it's hard. So. The solutions are hard.
And everything worthy is hard.
Everything worthy is hard. So, when we have solutions, we know what the solutions are. We have permanent supportive housing. We have wraparound services. We have, making sure that we have the medical and mental health systems in place. So having these systems in place, and this is where the County of Los Angeles voted on Measure H, which gives us support dollars. So we have the City of Los Angeles, which voted on HHH, which gives us the building dollars for the City of Los Angeles. So to build those 10,000 units in 10 years, and to have those wraparound services through the county dollars to really provide those services. And then, that's on the public, that's on the public side. And then on the private side, so foundations, organizations, private individuals that donate or volunteer or work at centers, engaging in creative solutions that are collaborative and creative. So we have to be collaborative. And figuring out, what I do is social enterprise and workforce development. So with the social enterprise community, it's about creating opportunity for folks for big issues that are challenged with finding resolutions. So social enterprise has a space in there to be impactful with homelessness. When you talk about workforce development, social enterprises, or
and
social
even
enterprises,
regular enterprises can, because most of them have programs to donate to good causes and this and that.
Yeah, I mean the Downtown Women's Center has over 5,000 volunteers every year. We could not do what we do without everything that we do. We have a split between private and public dollars. So 50% of our funding comes from private individuals and foundations. So we recognize that we need to resolve this as a community and not just with public dollars.
Money at it.
We need to be able to also have these other dollars to help subsidize what the government can't do, right? There's limitations to what we can get through the government dollars. But also it provides a freedom to really look at different solutions and look at, creative ways to try and do pilots and program pilots and see what works and work on studies to see what is the best solution. But I mean, 10 seconds or less, permanent supportive housing. I guess.
I think wraparound services was the big thing that I was like, that is, you need it all. You need to take care of the whole person. It's a holistic approach.
That's the supportive piece of permanent supportive housing. So that wraparound is that supportive. So permanent housing, and it's housing first. It's moving a person into a house.
And into a home.
Yeah, regardless of their mental health, regardless of their substance abuse, regardless of their addictions, regardless of, what their ability to pay. That's housing first.
I saw this video really quick. It was a country in South America that in 2001, I think they said, they stopped criminally punishing drugs at all. They had a huge drug problem.
Sweden or something.
No, it was in South America. They had a huge drug problem. And everyone was just cracked out all the time. And so they stopped criminalizing it. And instead, they put all of that money that was going to punishing people into infrastructure and healing and helping people recover. And
they did they did it another in Sweden.
Probably, I'm sure they've done a couple more, difficult.
That's what I mean. There's solutions to these problems.
Yeah, where I feel like one of my biggest gripes with the American political institutions, it's so based on punishment. It's so based on you mess up and there's a consequence, and I think the creativity and the positive reinforcement is really about, and the wraparound is really about saying what's going on there, why is it happening, and what can we do about it, rather than just.
And the County of Los Angeles is recognizing that housing is a subscription or prescription towards your health. So you cannot address your health issues if you're sleeping on the streets.
Yeah.
You cannot address your health issues if you're trying to get into a shelter every night. So under the county, we have, at the Downtown Women's Center, we have Housing for Health dollars. So we're moving women into permanent housing through health dollars.
Wow.
Recognizing that is a prescription.
Right.
Wow, that's
Makes
fantastic.
Sense,
Anyways, with all of that beautiful stuff said, we should probably wrap it up. We're a little over time, but not much.
We're right on time. Yeah.
Okay.
I do want to mention our next event, which will be July 20th. That's what I was trying to figure out here. July 3rd Thursday of every month we do it. Nice. July 20th. And I can't remember. I think it's about community next month. Do you remember, Kelsey?
Not off the top of my head.
I think it's a community. Next month is going to be our subject.
Sounds like one of our conversations.
So, do you guys want to have any wrapping up thoughts? Anything that you want to get in there last minute?
Nope.
I would just say we talked a little bit about the fears or anxieties around not being able to tap in creativity, and we all have it.
Yeah, just do it.
We all have it. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
It's in nature, because we don't know the future, right? That's the bottom
line.
Part
that's
we don't know what it's gonna take to get there. We don't know what it's gonna look like on the other side. We just can envision it and create it.
And truck on through.
And have grit.
All right, we will see you next time. Please comment for the rest of the month on creativity. Share your books and resources and everything that you love about the subject. And come next time to come in July. Bye.
Bye.